police emergency, hello?
Yeah, explosion at Manchester Arena!
Is anybody injured?
Yes, tomorrow! And a bomb's just gone off. Okay. A load of people lying around on the floor, there's blood everywhere.
Okay.
Please send ambulances.
We'll come in as fast as we can, okay?
On the 22nd of May 2017, a bomb exploded at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. 22 people were murdered. 8-year-old Safi Rose Roussos was the youngest victim.
She just had a heart of love.
She just was enthusiastic about everything.
As the 5th anniversary of the attack approaches, Safi would now be 13 years old.
Sometimes my mind will go, she's died, and it's like a house dropping on you.
We talk about her all the time. She's in our heart, and she's not going anywhere.
Tonight, Safi's parents tell their full story for the first time.
For us as a family, we need to get to the truth. I want to know whether it could have been prevented.
Happy birthday, Safi.
Find out what happened to Safi and whether she could have survived. To Safi!
Hello, this is Safi, and welcome to my car. This is my dad, this is my brother, this is me, and this is my mum. I just showed you my family.
It's a bag that she drew, Lord. Bless her. That was when the nursery teachers came to see us before she started reception,
This is the Roussos family. Mum Lisa, Dad Andrew, brother Xander, and Safi.
I don't think Safi ever sat still. She would be singing and dancing and jumping around. And it's a very energetic child. Very energetic.
She loved the music that she could. When we knew she was touring, she was coming to the UK. Andrew, what do you think about if we get her some tickets for Christmas?
She couldn't believe it. Could not believe it that she's going to go and see Ariana Grande live.
On the actual night, I set her out her clothes. I got her an Ariana Grande t-shirt. I think she got a little denim skirt on and black leggings. She couldn't believe it. So excited, so happy. She just wanted to get in the arena.
I knew the concert was finishing just before 10:30. I made them a sandwich, just in case they were hungry, and drove up to Manchester. I parked up there, waiting for them. I think it was about 28 minutes past 10.
We started going up the steps onto the concourse, and I got Safi's hand with my left hand, but she was pulling me. She just wanted to get out to see her dad and Xander and obviously tell them what an amazing evening she'd had. So she was pulling me. And then the next minute, I just remember hitting the floor really with a really heavy bang.
At 10:31, as the audience was leaving, 22-year-old Salman Abedi detonated his homemade bomb. Safi and Lisa were just 5 meters away.
I just heard people and children running and screaming. Hundreds of people, hysterical. I saw these 3 poor women and they were just crying, and I just said, what's going on? And they just said, we think a bomb's gone off. I sort of put my arm around Xander and I knew that this is serious. You never think in your lifetime you're going to be involved in something like this, and you just it's a surreal moment to be in. I spoke to a police officer and I just said, I'm looking for my wife and my daughter. So they just said, have a look at person on the floor, to person on the floor.
I kept thinking, help's going to come soon, just wait, help's going to come soon. Felt like a long time before somebody finally came over to me and they asked me my name. And all I could say was Safi. I just said Safi. Because I wanted them to find her.
Lisa was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Andrew finally tracked her down at 6:30 the next morning.
So I went into ICU and I took a look at Lisa and I just walked behind the bed and just broke down. They went through the possibilities of amputation of a hand, a leg, being paralysed from the neck down, and basically 20% chance of survival.
Lisa was put into a coma. Andrew still didn't know where Safi was.
This is becoming a nightmare, and it's unfolding to be real. One of the nurses that was with us said, this is a detective. I said, I need to know where my daughter is. I said, it's 8 a.m. And I think he returned at 12:30, and he says, ask for a room. He says, can you make your way to the room? And that walk to that room is something no human being should take. It's a cruel life that me and Lisa are living. Your whole world is just tumbling on the floor. It's just falling. We just know we've got to carry on, particularly for Xander. We've lost our daughter. He's lost his little sister. They were very, very close.
Lisa was in hospital for 3 months. Andrew and Xander stayed with her. The family never went back to their home in Lancashire.
Me and Lisa couldn't face what we had as a family. Once Lisa left hospital, I said, why don't we just move away? So we just basically escaped, a bit like running away.
To Dorset, and in their new home, there's a bedroom for Safi.
Everything in this room is what she knew that she'd seen, and that's what we wanted. We didn't want anything changing. So this was originally in Safi's bedroom. There's some photos, just some of when she was a baby. My first girl, look at that. Look how dark her hair was.
Have you been able to bring yourself to open these boxes much, or is it?
No, first time I've done that one.
It's been too hard.
She's here with me. And I wouldn't have her anywhere else.
Two years ago, a public inquiry began into the Manchester Arena attack and each of the 22 deaths.
listening to the inquiry, things went wrong, and they shouldn't have gone wrong. I can understand the sheer panic of that night. I witnessed it myself. You know, it's a horrendous ordeal. I mean, what drives me, I suppose, is knowing the information. I want to scrutinise everybody to the point of getting to the truth.
The inquiry's asking, could the attack have been prevented, and could any of the victims have been saved?
We are not looking for scapegoats. We are searching for the truth. Let us always remember, as we consider the evidence, that the person who is directly responsible for this tragedy is Salman Abedi.
Salman Abedi was born and raised in South Manchester. His parents had left Libya in the early 90s to settle here. In 2014, Abedi came to the attention of MI5. He was 19 years old. Soon after, he travelled to war-torn Libya. Whilst he was there, his case was closed. Abedi made 2 further round trips to Libya, returning just days before the bombing.
We can't stop every attack, of course we can't. But we can't stop the ones that are just so transparent where anybody can see what they're up to.
Security services to the Manchester Arena inquiry has been held in secret due to national security. The family say it's made it hard to know if more could have been done to prevent the attack.
Questions need to be answered. Why weren't you more prepared? Why were things changed from 7/7? You know, which we're going back many years. Why do we keep losing our loved ones?
Andrew,
Good to meet you. And thank you for attending.
In 2017, Lord Anderson was asked by the government to review the handling of Abedi. He was given access inside MI5.
I personally have a problem with our government and MI5 in the handling of the Abedi family prior to 2017 and the opportunities missed.
it was an appalling atrocity. We spend £3 billion a year in this country on counter-terrorism, and that night it didn't work. MI5 admitted to me at least 2 things they got wrong. And the first thing was that when early in 2017 they received intelligence, and they interpreted it something to do probably with drugs or organised crime, and not something to do with terrorism or national security. Then the second thing was that when Salman Abedi came back from Libya 4 days before the attack, they could have stopped him, or they could have asked the police to stop him at the airport and question him. If either of those things had been different, they're not persuaded that the attack would have been stopped. And although I respect that view, that as far as I was concerned, that was an open question.
After MI5 closed their investigation of Abedi in 2014, he went on to visit Abdal Rauf Abdallah in prison, a man convicted of terror offences. Despite this, Abedi was still not considered a risk to national security.
When you go to one of our prisons in this country and you visit the person that he did on a number of occasions, plus making phone calls to this person, that should be a trigger for MI5.
I think it's perfectly obvious to anybody that if a known terrorist or extremist is being visited in prison by somebody young and more impressionable, then it would make sense to see what intelligence could be gleaned from that encounter.
When police investigated Abdallah in 2014, they seized his phone. It contained 1,300 messages he'd exchanged with a fellow extremist.
Every day, on every kneeling, I ask my Lord, expect to see coming out of extremists. 14 messages a day, over 1,000 in a month. There's an intensity, isn't there, to that conversation?
Although police had used the messages to help convict Abdallah, they told the inquiry they'd never identified his contact. It was Salman Abedi.
You have somebody here who is very obviously espousing extremist views, is talking to a person under investigation and subsequently convicted for a terrorist offence. But then there's been no follow-up.
How did it get to a situation whereby the messages were seen by police officers, but no one followed up?
I don't know what the workload was in the Northwest at that time, but I would imagine it was very, very high. However, the bit that I struggle with is this is not difficult intelligence to exploit. We're investigating terrorists, you know, we want to investigate their networks. I find that inexplicable.
MI5 said they didn't receive this intelligence before the attack, and it wasn't until the year after the bombing that police identified Abedi was behind the messages. Lord Anderson's 2017 report found gaps in the way intelligence was shared between agencies.
It's the sort of thing that involves different organisations working together in an efficient way. And it's the sort of thing that we made recommendations about because it wasn't working as well as it should.
But in your opinion, do you think that should have been in place with the history that we've had up to 2017?
Well, of course it would have been better if it had.
No, do you think it should have been?
Well, I have to be careful because a High Court judge, Sir John Saunders, is going to decide if there is blame, where it should be apportioned. And that absolutely wasn't my job.
Yes.
It certainly wasn't perfect prior to 2017, and it's something that should now have been improved.
I was looking for honesty through it all, really, and I felt he was being as honest as he possibly could. The only way to make things better is to admit that there is mistakes that need addressing. Again, I keep hearing off everybody, you know, lessons learned. But things should, you know, we shouldn't lose 8-year-old children to make that point.
The inquiry is also looking at how the emergency services responded on the night. Greater Manchester Police were running the initial joint response.
I would also like to acknowledge and apologise for failings by Greater Manchester Police with this personally.
The inquiries heard there was a catastrophic breakdown in communication.
Failure to establish effective intercession reservedly.
Only 3 paramedics made it into the blast zone, and it was 2 hours before the fire service arrived after the last casualty had been taken out. The inquiry is due to begin hearing evidence about Safi, so the Roussos family are returning to Manchester.
Stuff packed under that you want to take, charges, phones.
Dreading it. Really don't want to go. It's giving me sleepless nights, it's made me anxious, it's horrible nervy feeling. Going to court, I think, will be the hardest. Going through my statement. I know it's going to be emotionally draining, but just keep saying it's for Safi, obviously. And I've got to do it.
Hi. Peace, Nicola. Very well, thank you. Nice to see you too.
After you give your evidence, we then go in to start the evidence of the people that were there who tried to help. You know, stating the obvious, this is very difficult territory for you. I'm very aware of that, and neither of you should feel.
Evidence disclosed to the Roussos' legal team raised questions about whether Safi could have survived the bombing.
At the very start, the family's understanding was that Safi had died straight away. But Safi lived for an extended period after she sustained these terrible injuries over an hour. And during that time, she was conscious, she was able to talk, she was able to ask questions.
After the bomb exploded, there were fears of a second attack. Because of the breakdown in communication between the emergency services, arena workers neighbours and members of the public were left to help the injured inside the foyer. Paul Reed was selling posters that night.
It was smoky and there was people running about screaming. And I just stood there for probably a minute. I think my brain was trying to take in what was going on because there was people on the floor. And then I phoned the police. Just kept on screaming to send everything and everybody to the arena foyer. There's been an explosion.
Paul saw Safi and tried to comfort her.
I told her not to worry, I was after her now and told her not to worry, that more help's going to come in a minute, and yeah.
As time went on, did you think, where are the ambulances? They're not here. Was it beginning to worry you?
It was definitely beginning to worry me that nobody was. There was no medics in it, or no. It was definitely worrying me.
"26 minutes after the explosion, Paul helped carry Safi to the street on an advertising board. Safi was the first person to be taken to hospital after an ambulance heading to the arena was flagged down.
Safi's main injuries were to her legs, particularly the backs of her knees. And there was obviously a lot of bleeding from those injuries. Unfortunately, that wasn't noticed or wasn't corrected. And if that bleeding is allowed to continue, eventually you run out of blood and the body will shut down. The people around Safi, many of them did their best in appalling circumstances, but the basic medical techniques that could and should have been used weren't.
At 20 to midnight, more than an hour after the attack, Safi died in hospital.
Finding out exactly what happened is hard to take, because you don't want anybody to suffer. Never mind, do you know what I mean? Your child. So it does make you very angry and gets you very upset to know that that little girl did everything she could to keep herself going, and the system failed her. And I want to get to the bottom of that.
Two sets of medical experts gave evidence to the inquiry. One group said Safi's injuries were too severe to survive. The other said it's possible she could have lived if she'd received basic treatment.
That worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's an inevitable consequence of the experts being in disagreement with each other. Obviously, I don't know what the chair will make of it eventually. I mean, you may get a very clear conclusion from him one way or the other, or it might be somewhere in the middle. It's not like a criminal case where you get guilty or not guilty. It's much less binary.
Could she have survived? Couldn't she? If she could have survived, then you then think about the care she was given or the lack of it. So that just throws you into turmoil. And I know that if she was given that chance, she would still be here. I really do.
Today, Andrew and Lisa will give their statements to the inquiry.
As mum and dad for Safi, really, we see it as Safi's voice, and we believe certain aspects of that night were catastrophically wrong. So we're here to make sure that it's aired for the judge to hear, and it is very important for us to do. It's going to be a tough day. As a human being, a father, I cannot live with myself if I don't voice this. The response on that night was shameful and inadequate. What can we learn from this? The response The security services on this atrocity should go down in history as one of the worst failures from start to finish, and that's what we should learn from this. Thank you.
I want to thank those that tried to help Safi that night, and for being with her. I also want to say to the professionals like the emergency services and MI5 that this inquiry isn't about protecting your job, your reputation or your uniform. We understand the sheer panic and fear you were faced with that night, but until you admit the failings, how can there be a positive change?
During the inquiry, North West Ambulance Service said lessons have been learned, but believed there were no inadequacies in their response which contributed to Safi's death. Greater Manchester Police and Fire Services accepted failings in their overall response on the night. Counter-terrorism police and MI5 have both told the inquiry they're sorry the attack wasn't stopped. The inquiry's conclusions are expected to be published later this year.
Set out to do what it's meant to do. I feel the need to keep pushing for a change, to do the right thing.
Before leaving Manchester, the family visit the memorial dedicated to the lives lost in the attack, to lay a time capsule for Safi.
To think that another mother could go through what I've gone through and still going through and will do forever is just heartbreaking. It's just... It's so sad.
Got the stuff for you. Yes, what you want to do?
She's not here, mate. She's with us at home. We'll never be who we were, and we'll never have what we had, but Safi's always with us, and we'll take her with us forever.